Lots of messages about what my testimony is and about like how I became a Christian. Ignore, I'm about to go to the gym. My dad is downstairs waiting, but I'm just gonna be very quick. So I didn't actually grow up in a Christian household. My parents, I think they believed in God, but like it wasn't something, not really maybe Jesus, and it wasn't ever something that like we were talked about. I didn't really have an opinion on it. I just thought, I'm just not fussed. If there is a God, there is. If there isn't, there isn't. And also like Jesus just roaming the earth. I was like, nah, whatever. Also, I'm having to minimise my testimony down like this because it involves a lot of other people, and I'm not going to bring people into this on social media and stuff. So we start when my dad and my old stepmom were arguing really, really bad, and they always used to argue, so it didn't impact me. I was like, yeah, whatever, cool. But for some reason, this one time I was getting really like irritated by it, and I just had this like urge, this like, I knew it was from God because I didn't want to do it, to like pray. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not about to do that. I don't know how to pray. I don't know, like it's just like alien to me. I don't want to do it, but I knew it wasn't me. And then I had this like urge, and I was like, put it off, and then I just decided to. And I didn't really know what to do or what to say, but as soon as I said amen, the door downstairs slammed, and that was it, quiet. So I was like, oh, coincidence, whatever. And then for the next week I started getting all these Christian videos on my For You page, and I was not fussed. I was not interested. I was like, I'm not a Christian, I don't want to see this. We have this thing called chapel at school, which is like very kind of like hymns and this kind of thing. So I was like, that's what Christianity is, that's what the Bible is, like boring, I associated it all with that. About a week later I had the same thing, and I just had this like urge and this like voice to like pray, and I was like, I don't want to pray, like what is going on? I thought I was going crazy. Anyways, I just decided to pray. I can't even begin to describe like the feeling. It was like my room was dark and it was cold, and my body started to like get hot, and I was explaining it was like pins and needles. If you like close your eyes and you put it in front of a lamp, it's like that kind of thing is what I saw. I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace, and I just started crying because I was like, that's the only thing I could like do to react to this. It was just like something I've never experienced before. In that moment I knew that this was true. I knew that Jesus was real, and it was kind of a scary thing to come to terms with. So my brother had this tiny little red Bible in his room, and I was like, cool, I'm just gonna go see if I can borrow it. And I literally became kind of like, everything I was reading was like a reflection of, I would be thinking something, and then I'd open my Bible and like, what I wanted to see was right there. I was like, this is just so real. And then summer came and everything. This was 2 years ago, by the way. This was summer of 2024. Everything went down the drains. I had zero faith. I was getting pulled into things to try and fill the void in my heart that I knew that only God could fill. I was going to drinking, I was going to boys, I was going to validation, I was going to trying to like, people please, everything to try and like just fill this void, and nothing was working, and I knew that the only thing I had to do was just turn to God. Yeah, I don't quite know how to explain it. I was getting in really bad situations and like relationships, and this one boy had told me, we were kind of like having an argument, and he said, why don't you just trust in God? And I was like taken aback, and even though it annoyed me so much, the thing that made me pick up my Bible for the first time in months, and I was kind of like really at a low place because I was like, I just don't feel worthy enough to be reading this. Like I just feel really like dirty almost. I was like, I don't deserve to be reading God's word. And then everything in November of 2024, everything was awful. I'm not going to go too much into detail as it does involve other people. It's like people really close to me were getting into really bad situations, getting into bad habits, getting around in the wrong crowd, and like some events happened, some things, and we were losing people. It was just really awful time. And so the people closest to me were asking me to pray for them, and I was like, I can't even pray for myself, and not just for them like in my own time with God, but like literally over them. And it was so nerve-wracking. It's crazy. In those 2 weeks, God transformed my heart and my faith, and it all became so real. And I just knew that I needed to give my life back to Jesus. I didn't go to a church this whole like year and a bit. I never went to church. But before this party, this boy who was Christian, he was inviting all his Christian friends, and he called me beforehand. He was like, are you a Christian? I was like, yeah. And he was like, why do you go to church? And I was like really convicted because I was like, ugh. I was like trying to come up with loads of things like, I don't need church, it's like relationship over religion, all this kind of thing. And then I went to this party and I felt so convicted the whole night, because I was like, people here probably don't even realise I was a Christian apart from the cross around my neck. And I just saw Jesus and all these people, and I was like, I want that. This church literally next to my house, which I'd never noticed before, I noticed for the first time, and I was like, so I went there, and it was just the best decision. And I just really encourage you, if you are a Christian and you don't go to church, to just go to church. Anyways, I need to go now, but I really hope that made some sense, and God bless you all.
You will not have to prove yourself, because God will vindicate you. And I want to give you a very real and true story that happened to me, and it just still blows my mind till this day, because God is so real and it's just cool. So years ago, when I was in like the MLM space in Worldwide Dream Builders, it's a organization that teaches you how to be more of a leader within the MLM space, specifically connected to the business of Amway. Okay, so no need to get confused about that. But anyways, I was in that for quite a bit of time. And within that time frame, God kept telling me to leave, but I didn't leave for like a year and a half maybe. But when I finally decided to leave, I wanted to leave in honor. I wanted to leave people, with gratitude. Like, I didn't want to leave on a bad note. So basically what I did was I made up in my mind that, okay, I'm going to obey God and I'm going to do this. And I was heartbroken. I was distraught because I was so cemented in my mind. Like, it was so cemented in my mind that I was never going to leave this business. I loved the mentality of it. I loved the grind of it. I just loved the dream that it painted for me. And I also really loved the community of people, like people that really understood how I thought and all that good jazz. So I was really upset. I was really sad to leave like my friends that I had made in that community. And I was really sad to leave the people that spoke so much life and growth into me. I've never met people like them before. But anyways, God told me to leave. So one day I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And when I did, I decided that I wanted to meet with each individual leader and tell them that I was grateful for them. And I also wanted to make it very clear to them why I was leaving. I just felt like I needed to do that. I wanted to be honest. I wanted to proclaim that I was leaving for Jesus. And I knew that it was going to sound insane to people, but that's just my story, and that's just how I wanted it to go. So I did, and it was very disappointing because some of the leaders unfortunately didn't end up meeting with me, and then they put it back on me trying to say that I didn't leave honorably because I didn't do that, which is not true. I tried to do it, but it just didn't happen because they never made time for me in their schedule to make that happen. So that was with like a couple of the leaders. But one of the leaders, this is where the story gets like juicy, right? One of the leaders, I was really close with him. He was like one of my main leaders. He was Israeli, and I don't know, like I went to church with him and stuff, but I didn't really know where he was at in his mind and heart with his walk with God. But like, he looked like he would always be in church, raising his hands, worshiping, like he was really in the worship. So I'm like, man, this guy must really know God. And the Lord used him because I got baptized, and he was the only person that was there for me when I got baptized. None of my family, none of my friends, it was just him. And when it was time for me to tell him why I was leaving, I met up at his house, and he legit just had this demeanor of very, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I don't want to say prideful, but almost like trying to be intimidating and just like very laid back when I was with him across the table at his house. And I was just like, I'm leaving because God's telling me to leave, and I'm leaving for Jesus. Like, God is calling me out of here. And he was just like, he kept pressing me like, how do you know that? And it just really trying to like, almost like in a mocking way. But I told him, I'm like, I said his name. I'm like, I'm not going to do this with you. I'm just letting you know because I want you to know. Period, right? And we left it at that. Didn't really talk about it. And I kind of was like joking with him after that, because he was like a big brother to me. I'm like, so do you think I'm a quitter now? Are you going to call me a quitter? And all these things, because that was like the culture, to call people quitters if they stopped being in that specific business, which is honestly just not right. Because if God calls you out of something, he's not going to call you a quitter for obeying him or for stopping something that he told you to stop. I went on with my life for a few years, never heard from them ever again, and I ended up moving to Dallas from California. I got married. Then one day this guy calls me. And he is like floored. Okay, he is like out of breath. I think he was even crying a little bit. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, Gabby. You know, his very Israeli accent, like very strong. He was like, he was talking very slow because I think he was in shock. He had just had an encounter with Jesus Christ. He was like, I just had an encounter with Jesus. I think I just met Jesus. He's like, I'm literally on my floor right now, like in shock. And he's like, I just wanted to call you to tell you that I'm sorry because I didn't believe you, but God showed me your entire spiritual journey. And when he told me that, like, I wish I would have gotten more context, but when I was in the moment, like, it just was so surreal. Like, this is a person that I would have never thought would go through something like this or call me or tell me something like this just because of how, you know, on their high horse they were, or just very like, yeah, whatever type of person. And I was shocked. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because, you know, I could have easily put this whole organization or these people, you know, on blast and went crazy on social media talking about how these people are this way and they're that way and they're not real believers, because they would all call themselves Christians, right? But, you know, when I said I was leaving, all of a sudden I'm hearing Satan, and all of a sudden I'm not really about my dreams, and all of a sudden I'm a quitter. Like, these don't seem like real Christians. But I didn't do that because I wanted to leave honorably. I did what I was in control of. That's what I felt convicted to do. And it wasn't in my control to make sure that people received something well. I just had to say it well. And that was it. And years later, here we are, where God showed them that I was never lying, that my spiritual journey was very real because I was very open about it. And they all thought I was weird. Literally, somebody came back to me and told me, they said that you're not hearing God. They said you're hearing Satan. Like, that one was wild, okay? But besides the point, God will vindicate you. You don't have to try to prove yourself in your own way. God will do it. Keep your hands clean so that people cannot say anything about you except for how good your God is and how awesome it is that you decided to obey and follow him.